The Dice Tower is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. This episode is sponsored by the Op, also known as USAopoly.
The Dice Tower, episode 676, General Purpose, Kansas.
Welcome to The Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them.
In today's show, I dig into my wallet, Mandy talks some new hotness, we have a shared one and done, and we'll close the show with a Deduction Game Pie. I'm Suzanne Sheldon.
And I'm Mandy Hutchinson.
And, woo, you all, I've definitely, Mandy, I think you have too, I've definitely been getting emails. Some of y'all figured out the naming convention for what it is. And I can tell some of you are disappointed. It's like, really? That's what you're doing?
It's like, oh, all right then. Yeah.
People, we never claimed to be clever at naming our show. We never claimed that.
We just, wanted something to make, you think about it a little. We can't help there's disappointment.
So congrats to the people who've been figuring out. You win the prize of being able to figure it out.
Exactly. Da-da-da!
Congratulations. Well, Mandy, my city, we continue to plug away at this Reiner Knizia Tile Lane legacy game.
Oh, wait. So, I'm so delighted. I'm shaking.
What happened, Mandy? Tell us what
in
happened.
my chair with glee. I won one game, almost won two. It was a tie.
Woohoo!
So, yes. And you can't see it now, but I'm holding both of my hands together and shaking them like, congratulations, Mandy. Well done.
It really just looks like you're shaking dice next to your ear.
Well, it could be that too. And hopefully I'm rolling sixes, baby.
So yeah, we're through 5 chapters, I think, now?
I think so. We're
15
doing
games in?
Yeah. I think that's where we are. Because we try and finish a chapter before we close off, if possible. So I think that sounds accurate.
Without spoiling it, I think it's interesting how I have won the majority of games that we've played from a points point of view, but from this kind of campaign tracking method that the game uses, I'm neck and neck. And part of me is grumpy about that.
I couldn't tell when we played. No.
Shush you. But part of me gets it. Part of me really appreciates that there's kind of a balancing mechanism built in. And I think where I'm not winning the majority of every game through points. Hey, everybody, I'm winning the majority of every game through points, by the way.
All right.
That if I would probably emotionally appreciate it more. But from a kind of a outside objective perspective, I think that's kind of cool. And definitely been having fun with it. So we'll keep on trucking on that. And I'm really looking forward to reporting back on it. I mean, Tom was right. Tom said that he thought I would enjoy it. And I am enjoying it. So
yeah. And I wanted to say I appreciate the emails of support from some of the listeners saying, hey, Mandy, I'm in the same boat as you. I'm still enjoying it. I haven't really won some games, but really having a good time with it. So when you hit where we just about finished, I think your luck is about to change, and you too could be in the 1 almost 2 winner camp of some games there. So look forward to that.
There are definitely some nice surprises in there. And I had briefly mentioned that Ohanami got picked up by Pandasaurus. I was very excited about it. And Mandy, I know you had been really excited to try the game. Now, it's a drafting game, and we have become quite good at figuring out ways to creatively play board games remotely with each other, using some webcams and digital tools, and of course being on some kind of video conference together. And we've had full game days together and had a lot of fun. But I think we may have hit a pinnacle with Ohanami.
Oh, this was fantastic. And let's be clear, this was all Suzanne. Now, we all have an affinity for spreadsheets.
Who doesn't love a good spreadsheet?
Right? And a pivot table, but we didn't get into that. That's a whole other thing. But Suzanne took it to a whole other level here, and I have to say, I was very impressed. And I think we are going to have to do a playthrough at some point with the system you've implemented. But you, Suzanne, tell us a little bit about this. You don't have to go into details if you don't want to, but just, oh my
No,
goodness.
I think that that's an interesting idea. If we just live stream a version of it, I think that's probably the best way, because ultimately we have a few of us have a copy of the game, but using drafting, of course, remotely would be very, very challenging. And so we figured out a system where one of us operated the cards and dealt the cards through the webcam. And then we used a spreadsheet, a shared Google spreadsheet, where we had tabs for your hand of cards and tabs for your tableau of cards. And it was all color coded and all this other stuff. And honestly, it kind of felt like you were passing hands of cards in a weird, weird way. And I had a great time playing it with you. So thanks for putting up with that experiment. And I do agree, Mandy. I think for us, it worked well enough that it would be fun to do it again and show it off and see if other people wanted to give it a try, if they wanted to try Ohanami in the age of a quarantine.
Yeah, I think it's great. You don't understand. I'm still super impressed because I was like, how are we going to play drafting games in general? And I really want to play this one, and this just was amazing. So yes, play through. Hopefully we can do it, and then you all can see it in its glory.
And as everybody is playing more digital games, one game that's popped up kind of in the social media world lately that I know we're excited to play together is
Among Us. Ah.
So have you all out there been trying this game? I don't know if you all have seen it. It's actually been out for a couple of years, which is interesting that it's now in the age of a pandemic and a quarantine in which people are really latching on to this concept of play. But Mandy, do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so I actually don't know a ton about it. It was brought to my attention by a few people, but it's one of those games where you need a large amount of people to play. What is it, like 4 minimum?
It's a 4 minimum. I think it's 4 to 10.
4 to 10, that's right. And I think we're probably going to look at playing it on Steam, but I did read that it is available on Android and iOS.
It is.
I actually think it's free on Android and iOS, but I think it's paid through Steam. So,
yeah, that's often how it works. And
Yeah.
there are little like upgrade packs that you can buy through Android and iOS as well.
And I think you actually know more about it than I do. I just saw little cartoon figures we can play with groups of people and solve things. I was in it just for that.
Yeah, so it is a trader mechanic game. So it's kind of a I don't know if you would call it a social deduction game, but basically you all play characters on this spaceship and you have missions that you need to achieve. And what you know is that one of the players is a traitor, essentially. And the traitor wins if they manage to kill everybody and stop them from completing their missions. And the crew wins if they manage to out the traitor. It's all played through a digital interface, right? It's a video game, really. But when you look at it, so many of the mechanics are very related to a heart in analog gaming with games like The Resistance, right? We see so much of this. And Mandy, in fact, we were just talking earlier. You had suggested that we do a game pie about games that aren't analog, but feel like they could have been.
Right.
And I think Among Us, in many ways, fits into that category. So that'll be a really fun one to check out. I am not a huge fan of social deduction, which we might talk a little bit more about later. But this one looks really appealing.
So, and don't say anything about the space thing. I know you're just itching to mention the space theme. Don't say it.
So anyway, hey, Mandy, because I love you. Played any good games lately?
Oh, I sure have. One is just eerily exciting. Woo! This episode is brought to you by the Op Games, also known as USAopoly. Today's featured game is Scooby-Doo Coded Chronicles. In Scooby-Doo Escape from the Haunted Mansion, players step into the roles of Scooby-Doo and the Mystery Inc. gang and work together to decode over 50 clues in order to find their way out of the Haunted Mansion in this cooperative at-home escape room style game. Each game offers a unique storyline and objective to provide a one-of-a-kind gameplay experience. You can get your copy of Scooby-Doo Escape from the Haunted Mansion at retailers today. You can get your copy of Scooby-Doo Escape from the Haunted Mansion at retailers today.
So, what have you been playing lately?
right, well, ready for some spooktacular information about a new game? Yeah, okay.
Okay, Mandy. It's too early in the show for this shenanigans.
All right, I'll stop messing around. Let's get to it. So, the first game that I'm going to talk about is Haunted Mansion Call of the Spirits. And this is designed by Prospero Hall, art is by Prospero Hall, and it's published by Funko Games. It's for 2 to 6 players, plays in about 30 minutes. This one is a pre-order on Amazon.com, and it's available October 1st for the wonderful round price of $25 US. I did find it difficult to see anything for Canadian sites, but I'm assuming that we could probably get it through Amazon or another retailer coming soon, but that's when it's going to be available, October 1st. So in Haunted Mansion, you gain points by literally socializing with ghosts around the mansion. And ghosts around the mansions are in the form of cards, and the cards have points, and they also have other things that they allow you to do. For example, getting rid of haunt cards, which are bad. Haunt cards are going to give you negative points at the end of the game, so you want to make sure you don't get them, but some cards or ghosts give you haunt cards, so you have to try and find a way to balance that. And there are different rooms on the board that you can visit to get these cards. My mind is escaping me of all the exact names of them. There's like a seance room, and there's a hall, and things like that. There's also the 3 ghosts in the game, and the 3 ghosts are naughty. They're bad because when they move spaces in the game, because yes, they do move, and actually your competitors can make them move, if it goes through a room that you're in, you're going to get haunt points, which is so awful because people can be really naughty and send those things right to you. Or, if you're going to a room to get a ghost card to get some points, and they're in there, you are also going to get those haunt cards, which, as we remember, are not good for you. In the game, there are a few actions. I'll quickly talk about them. Move. So moving into an adjacent room, you're rotating the endless hallway. So that's in the middle of the board, and that's what rotates. So that allows you to kind of get somewhere faster without having to use an action to move there. There's collecting, and that's taking the ghosts from the rooms, which I talked about. You can also duel another player. Oh, this one's crazy. So you can attempt to steal a ghost card from a player in the room that you're in. You can only do it once per turn, but that can really get you finish some sets that maybe you were working on, because there are some ghosts that are part of sets, and that's my favorite, when it's like, if you have 2, you get 0, but if you get 3, you have 13 points. Woo! So stuff like that can be a little crazy. And then you get to discard haunt cards. So if you are in the seance room, which is the middle of the board, if you go in that spot and then you decide to discard, you can get rid of a haunt card. So that's really useful. The game ends when there's a card that comes out in the deck, because we're always pulling out ghosts every round to put into the rooms. When it says, let's finish this round, or this is the last round, or something to that effect, then that will be the last round. And then you count up your points based on set collection, based on the types of cards that you have, and it'll tell you how to count those points. Or if the point cards just have point values on them, and then you subtract your haunt cards. But then again, it's based on who has the highest between you and another player, and that'll determine if you're losing those points. So that's it. It plays pretty fast. We played it with 2 players. Now, we did play it virtually, so bear that in mind, because each of us had a copy of the game, but we played it online, which actually worked really well. Even if you didn't have, another player didn't have a copy, it could still really work. It just has some, you might have to have a separate area for other players if you're just doing it off of one screen, but it actually worked really well online. So it was cute. It was fun. Played really quickly with 2 players. I think we played it in not even maybe half an hour, but that was the first game. We were kind of just figuring out the rules and stuff. I think it would be crazy at 6 players. At 2 players, we were kind of, throwing the ghosts around to try and get someone to take haunt points. But at 6, it would be ridiculous. Of course, you would have someone always trying to shoot a ghost at you, so you would really want to make sure you come back to that middle spot so you're not getting attacked by those ghosts, because if you're in the middle, you don't get that, nothing happens to you there. And I also think it's easy enough for children to play. There's a bit of text on the card, which relates to set collection, but it's pretty straightforward. If you have 2 of these, you get these points. If you have 6 of these, you get these points. So depending on the age of the child, I think it would be very easy to play as a family, as long as they're not too scared by the imagery. But even then, it's cartoon ghosts. It would just depend on the sensitivity of the children, potentially. But overall, I mean, it's supposed to be a light, silly game. If you're familiar with the Haunted Mansion, which I love the ride personally, I was like, oh, this is so cute. Do you need to know the theme to enjoy the game? You don't. The game itself is strong enough on its own. So Haunted Mansion, Call of the Spirits, I really liked it. And the times we're in now, it was lighthearted fun. So even though it's about haunted spirits and whatnot.
Oh, anybody that's been to the theme park and been to that ride knows it's all as goofy, kind of Addams Family-esque,
Right.
quote unquote horror, right? It's not. Yeah, lighthearted is definitely the right way to put it. Well, that's awesome. That's very, very cool. I love that ride too. I always loved when you go and it's like the roof, like the room seems to stretch, right? Oh, so cool.
So good. So my only concern with Haunted Mansion is the availability for maybe us that are not in the US. That's one of those things we'll just have to keep an eye on. But it's like a lot of those games. Crossing our fingers, we'll be able to get our hands on it. But October 1st is the date to look for it. So Haunted Mansion, Call of the Spirits.
Up for me, I've been going through a lot of wallet games.
Oh.
For those of us who've been playing board games and hobby games for a while, we all know that when Love Letter came out, it kind of spearheaded a rush of quote-unquote micro games. And just how people talk about roll and write games today and kind of roll their eyes sometimes at it now, right? Because it feels like there's this huge surge of roll and write games coming out. Well, a number of years ago, that was a discussion around micro games. Micro games being essentially 18 card, very low card count little games that were packed in little baggies, essentially, like little velvet bags and things like that. There was kind of a big surge of micro games after Love Letter because it was inspiring. One publisher has certainly kind of carried the mantle forward for micro games and shown that it is like any game format. It's just a format, and it's what you do with it that matters. And that's Button Shy Games. Every month they come out with a new wallet game, which they define as being, I believe, 18 cards. I have been thoroughly impressed over the years with the variety of games that have come out of that line. And I realize that we don't talk about them a lot on the show, but I do play them a lot. So today I wanted to talk about Seasons of Rice. This is designed by Corey Dammy, and the art is by Jerome Dammy and Corey Dammy, and it's published by Button Shy. Now, all of the Button Shy wallet games retail for $12 on their website in US dollars. Seasons of Rice is a 2-player card game, and the cards are all double-sided. One side has a field side, and one side has a quote-unquote ancestor side. The ancestor side is really just a unique scoring condition. And the field side is really what you're going to be primarily interacting with in the game, because the field side shows green for the fields, but then it has like brown fence lines, and it'll have farmers or houses or buffaloes on them, that kind of thing. It's essentially a drafting game, and it comes in 2 phases, the wet season and the dry season. In the wet season, you're going to get a hand of these cards, and you're going to draft 2, 1 to keep and play, and 1 that goes into the dry season line. After all those cards have been drafted and played, then you move into the dry season, where all those cards that got placed there earlier, now you go through and you draft them again and you play them. It goes very, very quickly. There's only 18 cards in this game, and a couple of those cards are pulled out for your ancestor. Ultimately, after all those cards are played, you're going to score it. You're going to score points for all the squares that are enclosed in the fence lines. You're going to score points for farmers and for buffaloes. You're going to score points based on whatever your ancestor card was. You're going to lose some points for things like loose buffalo. And whoever has the highest score wins. It's that simple. Literally, if I handed you the game and you listened to that 1-minute explanation, you'd be able to play the game.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's very, very straightforward. But it's clever. And it has a nice spatial puzzle to it. And there are a few games out there that use this kind of fencing mechanism, defining these areas through a grid style play. I think that Seasons of Rice, to me, feels like a very clean distillation of some of that. There's a game called Walnut Creek that's more of a Euro style game and much bigger and has a lot more going on. I think
I've played that one. Yeah, I've played that one.
Right, but at the heart of it, there's this area where you're playing tiles and aligning them, and you're enclosing different resources and areas. And it's the thing I liked most about Walnut Creek, while some of the other game I didn't enjoy as much. And so here's Seasons of Rice giving me an element of a game that I really, really like. It's just clean and simple, straightforward, but engaging, right? I really do have fun playing Seasons of Rice. I like the puzzle. I like the way that the different ancestor cards mix it up. So at the beginning of the game, I think I forgot to mention, you're going to get dealt 2 cards. One you keep for your starting field and one you keep for the ancestor. So you're kind of looking at which ones you want to keep and then plan your strategy accordingly. And it really does change how you approach the puzzle of laying out the cards as you get them. Seasons of Rice, if you are looking for a quick 2-player game that you can play with, I think, a wide range. I think younger people can play this pretty simply because it is such a simple game. But without a doubt, it is a great game that you can just like keep in your wallet, you can throw in your pocket, you can keep in your quiver case, whatever. It's a great on-the-go 2-player game. There are a couple of really small expansions that are also available, like this river that adds a little bit to it as well, that I also, quite frankly, really enjoy. So, Seasons of Rice, for a wallet game, 2-player quick 18-card game, I really enjoy it.
I have a lot of these ones, and this is one that I saw, but I was like, I don't know. Like, 2-player for me is hard to play right now.
Yeah.
But it sounded really interesting, and it's funny that you mentioned Walnut Creek, because I had played that one, and that one's been around for a while, so it has similar elements, or similar kind of idea to that. I would be kind of interested.
It's just that concept of fencing in resources that I really, really like and really enjoy. And I just generally like spatial puzzles in games and tile laying in games, and essentially this is a tile laying game using cards. So, but with you, Mandy, I do know that 2-player games are a little rougher to get to the table sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. But one I might give that a go. I mean, can we play it virtually?
That one's going to be a little tougher to play virtually. I'll have to think about a way if we could rig it up, but that one's a little tougher. I'll think on it. For you, Mandy, right. I'll think about it.
Yes. So the next game I'm going to talk about is Tellstones King's Gambit. This is designed by Chris Cantrell. Art is by Danny Beck, and it's published by Riot Games. It's for 2 or 4 players. It plays in about 10 to 20 minutes, and I believe it retails for about $30 US. Now, I will preface this by saying I have done a video review of this on my own personal channel, To Die For Games, but I am going to talk about it here because I wanted our listeners to hear about it here as well. It's really simple. It's a bluffing game, which what they consider perfect information for 2 or 4 players. So I've only played the 2-player variant of this game. Some background on this. It talks about this being variant of Tellstones are played throughout Runeterra, the world of the League of Legends card game, okay? And this is considered the Demacian variant. So if you're familiar with those types of games, then you'll be like, okay, this is familiar to me. And instantly when I thought of this game, I thought of Gwent from The Witcher, because they also kind of have their own game that follows their storyline. So it's not the same gameplay.
This is like a whole genre of games now. Games that exist in other games that are fictional that then are converted into actual games.
Right? It's true.
There's the other one from the mice books, right? The Warrior Mice books that became a real game as well.
It's funny. I didn't realize there were so many.
It's a genre. Go figure.
It really is. And I'm wondering now if more of them have been brought to life, like Tellstones. I know Gwent you can play on Steam, but I've never seen an actual physical copy of it.
Tak is a game, not from a game, but it's from a series of books, right? They created Tak. And
that's funny. Ashley was the one who mentioned that to me when we were playing this. I said, oh yeah, Tak, I forgot about that. Yeah, so she had mentioned that as well. So, okay, I feel another Game Pie potentially coming up. Let's hang on to
maybe.
that.
Maybe.
I don't know. We'll see if we have enough. Sure. Well, and that's the key there. So, so in this game, Tellstones, King's Gambit. In the box, you get, it's a small kind of metal box. And the reason why I'm describing it, because the game is so short, so I'm going to tell you some of the things that are in it first. It comes in a very nice kind of metal box, and you have a mat it's long.
Okay, does it come in a metal box, or is it coming in a tin?
No, thick. It's heavy.
For those of you who cannot see this, which is basically everyone, it's about the size of a CD case?
Yeah.
For those of you old enough to remember CDs.
But it has, and I'm going to do this, and hopefully this doesn't hurt your ears.
Yeah, so, it's solid.
It's solid, and then there's an insert inside, but we'll talk about all that. But yeah, no, it's not like one of those, like, let me press it and bend it in. No, that's not happening here. So quality on that is, and we'll talk about that a bit more, is definitely there. So it comes in this box, and in the inside, there's a mat that kind of gets rolled out, so it's like it's a more long rectangle shape, because that's going to be where your stones are going to go. And the stones are like a hard resin. So think of like dominoes, that kind of feel to those good dominoes. It's like that. And they're round. So if you've played War Chest or anything like that, it looks like tokens similar to that. They're round, and they all have symbols on them. So I think there's like a hammer of some sort. There's like a horse. There's a flag. There's a whole bunch of symbols on them, and those are important because you have to remember them. Because remember, we're playing bluffing, has a bit of a memory in there in this game. So what's going to happen is you're going to set the stones up above the kind of banner that we're going to roll out. And if you're playing a 2-person game, you're going to have 2 sides to the table, and to track your points, or how many rounds you win, I guess you could say. And you start with one of the stones in the middle, and then from there you have various actions of bringing in the stones. So even though, let's say it's my turn, and I want to put a stone in the middle, it's going to be face up, they're all face up to start. I'm going to put one in the middle, I don't get to decide where it goes. Your opponent gets to decide where it goes. Does it go to the right or to the left of what's already on the mat? And then the next player goes, and if they want to do the same thing, you tell them where you want them to place it. So that's one way of doing it. So you can tell which stone to place. Then you can hide a stone if you want, and that's flipping a stone over. So you now no longer have that information available to you. It gets covered, so to speak, and you kind of have to remember, okay, that's flipped down now. Then you want to tell which stones to swap. So you can swap stones that are face down, or one's face down, face up, but they just swap places. They don't switch their face, like if it's up or down, but their position in the line. Because remember, all the stones are going to come down that line, and then eventually you want to challenge, which we'll get to. You have an option at peeking at a stone. So that's if one that's covered underneath, you can kind of take a look at it. So, hey, maybe you're thinking of guessing on a future turn, so you can do a little peek action. You can peek at 3 of those stones if your opponent scored a point. If they just scored a point, you'll get to peek at 3 of those. You can challenge for a point. We're going to talk about challenges, or boasting to win the game. So boasting is one of those, you know all the hidden symbols. So you don't have to, if the face one's up, we can see them, but then if you know all the hidden symbols, you can say, yes, I will boast. I know what those 3 or 2 or whatever hidden symbols are, so you can recite them. So your opponent can say, okay, I believe you. You can have a point. You don't have to prove it. You can just say, I believe you. And this is where that whole bluffing thing comes into play, right? The second thing you say, I don't believe you. I'd like you to prove it, right? So then that person does have to tell you what they are. And the other one is, I don't care. I know them too. I do like the attitude here. And this is where your opponent can steal your boast, and they've turned it against you, and then you now must choose between options 1 and 2, instead of having your 3 options. And then what's going to happen is, if you boast and it's correct, you win that game. Simple, straight out. Right? So when you do the boast action, you are looking to kind of win. If you don't, you lose. You can see that it's a very short game, depending on how many stones you have flipped up, or, depending how quick people are. I just happen to play with somebody who has a photographic memory, so our games were quite short.
Yikes.
So that brings me down to my thoughts on this game. I always preface negative reviews with the fact that we have to be respectful. People take a lot of time to do these games, whether we like them or not. That's not something we have to focus on.
Sure, not every game can be for every person.
Exactly, but it doesn't mean we have to be mean. Okay, so let's just preface it with that. So we're going to talk about the game by saying this was not for me. This game was absolutely not for me, between the bluffing and the memory, and it just wasn't for me at all. This is the same company that did Mechs vs. Minions, and this is where I was expecting something completely different, and that's on me for having that expectation. I get it, they're trying something a little different here with this game. I didn't see it. It wasn't for me. However, maybe someone who likes those kind of bluffing aspects to a game, or a memory aspect to the game, they might enjoy this. I'm also not a fan of Hanabi. Doesn't mean it's a bad game. No, it's just not for me. So that's something to consider as I'm talking about this. The quality of the components is very good. So you can hear like that tin I was talking about. Even if I didn't like the game, I would still actually even use some of the bits that are in there. Do you know what I mean? So it was still really good. The resin, those are quality. Like, they have weight to them. You can tell that they took the time to do things right. Even though it's not a game for me, I can appreciate that they put some thought into it, and they put some thought into the components. Because if someone is into that type of game, they're going to maybe want a quality game. That being said, the price point is high. And I think it's high because of the components they used. But having that price point for the type of game that it is, for my aspect, I personally wouldn't pay that much for that game, but I don't enjoy it. Someone who enjoys it or likes the components may feel the need to do that, and that's totally fine. You'll get a quality game in that respect, but the price point is a bit high for what it is, gameplay-wise, in my opinion. Something that also came up was we felt that this game could be played with cards.
Oh, sure. Easily, yeah.
Right, same backed cards, and this is where the difference comes in between someone who was like, oh, sure, if I wanted just a quick game to play with someone and, I can throw it in my bag, sure, you could do this with cards. If someone's like serious, they're into the, the history of the game, they're like, yeah, I follow this, I'm totally into it, then you may want those quality components. Again, for me, if I was interested in playing this, I could easily just do it with cards, and that is something that's an option for some people. So those are some of the kind of key things that stood out to us. So overall, this is not a game that I personally would need to own. I understand the people that may enjoy this if you like that type of game, but Tellstones was not for me.
Well, I appreciate your transparency.
Thank you.
Hey, a game that could be played with cards and is played with cards
Oh, I see what you did there.
is another wallet game. Ah, huzzah. There's no big metal box or small metal box involved in this one, just a plastic wallet for Avignon Clash of Popes. This is another two-player game, and certainly a lot of the wallet games veer towards two-player just because of the component limitation. However, there are a number of them out there that play more as well, but I just happened to talk about a couple of two-player ones this time. Avignon Clash of Popes is a game about vying for power within the church between Avignon and Rome. The design is by John Dubois. The art is by Fabrice Weiss. And of course, it's button shy. Of course, it's in that $12 wallet game line. What's going to happen is cards represent characters. And you're going to have a virtual 5-row board, essentially. And there's actually 5 of the cards are dedicated towards laying out those rows. And character cards are going to be dealt out in the middle, and then the rest are on a deck. And what you're going to do is you're going to take turns manipulating these cards, and ultimately you win the game when you get 3 characters over the back line towards your side of Rome or Avignon, depending on which one you're playing. And that means that you have the most influence in the church, you win the game. So it's tug of war. And on your turn, you can just push or pull a single card forward or back. You can excommunicate, church theme, a card and just remove it from the board and then replace it with the one from top of the deck. Or you can petition, and you're going to be doing a lot of pushing and pulling, and you're going to be doing a lot of petitioning. And that's where you use the character's special ability, because all of the character cards have some special ability on them. And one of the things that I think helps Avignon really work is the variety of special abilities. So you could argue, it's just going to give you extra pushes or pulls or things like that. And some do. But some of them really start looking at what other characters are on the board. And if in certain scenario, they're scenario-based strengths. So if you have this character, then it really counts as 2 characters if this other character's in play and that kind of thing. So you put the cards out, you push and pull, you try to get the 3 over to your side and win the influence. First one to do that wins. Again, a very simple, straightforward set of rules. It's pretty quick to play, although I have found there is some interesting tension as you're really plotting and planning. And I very, very much like this one. And I was really, really glad that they also came out with an expansion, which adds even more characters, which I thought was a great idea. So Avignon Clash of Popes, this little tug of war, the planning on when you're going to do what moves, trying to think through the characters on the board and how to take most advantage of petitioning them. That all comes together, I think, in a very nice, thoughtful package, especially in just 18 cards, or really like 13 cards after you get rid of the ones that mark your territory kind of thing. The other thing I will note is Avignon does have an app version. And I will say flat out, yeah, I understand why a smaller publisher like Button Shy doesn't do more app versions, because apps can be very expensive to produce. But wow, geez, I wish they would do more, because these games work so well as apps because of the real estate thing. I think is one thing. Because of the component limitation, you don't end up with these sprawling layouts and things like that a lot of app developers have to struggle with managing real estate on screen, right? It's concise, and it just translates beautifully to digital form. And Avignon is a lovely app version as well. So even if, Mandy, you think you can't get 2-player games to the table, you might want to try the app version of Avignon on iOS or Android because it's quite a fun way to experience the game as well.
Oh, this is great. As you're talking, I'm like, let me look this up here on my Android phone. Went to the Google store, Play Google, and it is on there for $1.29 Canadian, so it's probably like 99 cents in
Probably
American.
99 cents in the US. Yeah, and I think there's an expansion available in it too. So
Oh, there is. Okay, well, while you're talking, let me take a peek.
So that's Avignon Clash of Popes, another wallet button shy game that I definitely recommend if you have 2 players. It is a really solid tug of war game.
I remember this one being on Kickstarter. Am I wrong?
Yeah, Button Shy runs fairly regular Kickstarters. That's how they fund their print runs, I believe, for the game. So it likely was on Kickstarter. I think Avignon is actually one of the older ones, but maybe the expansion was Kickstarted a little more recently.
Yeah, I remember seeing it a while ago, and it's like, oh, I liked the idea and the theme of it. It looks really interesting. So
it really works.
Yeah, I'm glad to see it on an app. So excited! Thanks for that.
Sure thing.
All right, the final game we'll be talking about, and we're going to kind of do this as a joint effort because we played it together, is Masterword. So Masterword is designed by Gérald Catio. Art is by Nils, and the publisher is Le Scorpion Masqué. All right, so this is a dear company to my heart because I have a few friends who are Canadian. So Masterword is, I guess, designated as a cooperative word-based deduction game. And this is where we have to work together. Ha! So a lot of word games, right? You're playing against each other. Not in this case. We want to work together.
Right.
However, we have, some of us are, I don't know what the exact, you're going to have to help me out here.
Well, it's more like Mysterium, right? Where there is I forget, like the clue giver.
That's it.
And then there's everybody else trying to figure out the puzzle.
Is it the guide?
Created.
I feel somebody's called a guide.
Yeah, correct.
Yes,
yep.
That's it. I was just trying to get...
Guide and seekers.
Guide and seekers. See? I knew you would know the right terminology. I'm just like, that person and that person. Thank you, Suzanne. So, the seekers are the ones... So, what's going to happen? Let me rewind, start over. I'm getting too excited here. You're going to have a card that the seeker's going to tell you. This is the topic, I guess you could say, of what the card is. So, I'm going to pick an example of one that we did so horribly on. Pikachu. So...
Well, no, you're messing it up. The topic was...
Oh, I know. I'm getting to that. Okay. I wanted to tell them what it was so they could see how ridiculous we played.
Yeah, we failed.
It was bad. So Pikachu was the answer. The reason why I'm telling you that is because we didn't get it. Okay, let's just start with there. But do you remember what the category was?
Was it creature?
I think it was creature or something along those lines, or, and what happens is the team, which happened to be Suzanne and I, we had to come up with, I don't know, is it words or clues or phrases or something?
It's a concept, right? So we have cards. So the components in the game are a bunch of dry erase cards and then this stack of clue cards. And the top of the clue cards have the topic, like creature, and then the bottom, which stays hidden, has the actual answer. And then all the players, you'll get the topic, so creature, and then we all write an idea on our card. And they're very clear in the rules. It doesn't have to be one word. This isn't just one. But it has to stick to one concept.
Right.
So...
I think we said, like, fantasy was one of mine, for example.
Right. So you could say it's blue, and that's very, very straightforward. Or you could say generally makes you happy.
Right.
Or we did one where it was generally served warm, that kind of thing. So you can use more than one word on your card, but it has to kind of contain one concept.
Right. And we did this in a spreadsheet because we were playing it virtually, so we can see it out there. And it's timed, by the way. So while you're having a little discussion about this to yourselves, I think it's like a minute and a half or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And that's how much time you have to get it in there and figure it out. And then the guide is the person that's going to say, how many of those are correct? They don't tell you which ones are correct, but tell how many. And if you have one, I think that if you have one that's like you've nailed it, like it's so strong, they can give you a token to say, hey, you are definitely on the right track here. Right. I don't remember what it's called, but
I don't remember what it's called, but you only get one per game.
Right, exactly. So that's why if they put it there, then it's like hot, hot, hot. You're definitely blazing down that trail. So you have so many guesses.
7 rounds.
Right, 7 rounds to get there, and you need to guess it by then, or we've lost.
Right.
The reason why I bring up Pikachu, and I keep coming back to that, we didn't get it. Like, it was so obvious, and we didn't get it.
Yeah, we were floating all around it. And ultimately, if you have played the classic deduction game Mastermind, right? With the old colored plastic pegs and the board. This is basically a word game version of Mastermind. That as you're going through and you're laying out options, you're trying to winnow it down. Is it alive? Is it fictional? Is it things like that? And you're trying to play that little game of getting towards the topic that it is. Now, we also played one where the topic was character.
Oh, that was hilarious.
And Mandy got it in one. It was awesome.
It's so funny.
So, and the cards get harder as you go. And I forget, there's just hundreds of cards. There's so many clue cards in this game. And what it works is that you work through them. They're numbered. You work through them from 1 to 250, and then you flip the deck over, and then you go from 251 to 500. So if you wanted to really marathon it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I will be really straightforward and say when I read the rules, I thought, okay, it sounds fine. I wasn't super excited about it after I read the rules. And then we played it. And Mandy, I don't know about you. Well, I do know about you because I played it with you. But
exactly.
Oh my gosh, I had so much fun.
We did.
It was
really
fabulous. Good. Mastermind as a word game. Maybe if it had been, I don't know if I would have been more excited if it had really been pitched to me that way earlier. But once we got into it, it actually became challenging. And it's funny because I played the guide and I played a seeker. The guide's perspective, I mentioned Mysterium earlier, and it has that same energy for the guide where you're hearing the players talk, but you can't tell them if they're on the right track. And so you'll hear the players chatting and go right over exactly the right thing, and you can't do anything about it. And so then it had a lot of that kind of collaborative, weird, positive tension.
Yes.
That was just a blast to play.
And you really start to see whose minds are on the same track, like the one that kind of anime, like when I think it was the Pikachu one, where, was it that one? Anyway, long story short, Suzanne and I had a really, I guess, big or broad knowledge of, I forget what it was. We were talking about manga and anime and,
well, we were talking about things
Kawaii.
Like Voltron and Power Rangers. And
all sorts of stuff. And Ashley was like, what in the world? And it was kind of hard for her, right? To be like, maybe, because we were so focused. And that's where, it can be tough because you might, and the guide though, I think can look it up. Like if they're not sure about something, they can ask for clarification from us or look it up. So that I liked. And I think that is in the rules, if I'm not mistaken.
It is.
So the reason I bring that up is because Suzanne and I were just throwing out all this stuff, and Ashley's like, okay, I have no idea where you're going with a lot of this. So she was able to ask for clarification. So I do wish the title of this game was different. Don't love the title.
Well, Masterword, I guess now that I think about, maybe they're playing off of Mastermind, Masterword.
Oh, maybe.
But yeah, I think that the title of the game it does nothing for me. But if you dig past the title,
exactly,
right? And we played, I don't know, Mandy, maybe we're becoming party game people. Maybe that's what quarantine is doing to us, because we played Herd Mentality a few weeks ago together and just had a blast playing that remotely too. Or maybe it's just that we've stumbled on some games that give us just fun with friends over a virtual environment that worked for us. So
yeah, so knows? Masterword was in my case, it was a winner, and I feel like I think you feel the same.
Loved it. Well, those are some games that we played recently, but we also have a game that we played recently that maybe we're not as excited to play again.
Dearest game, it's not you, it's me. Except this time it very well may be you. Either way, you are a one and done. Best regards, me.
All right, one and done. I feel like it's been a while. Maybe it's just a while for me, but
we've done some apps. We've done some apps. Usually we do one and done or an app or a shelf staple.
Well, this one kind of fell into our laps, and we felt we should do this one, while it was fresh in our minds so we could talk about it. So today we are going to be taking a look at the game Rare Roses, and this is designed by Rocky Heckman. Art is by Leith Walton and Nene Thomas, and it's published by Craven Studios. So just so everyone knows, we're doing a shared one and done today because we've both played it, so we can give a little bit of perspective. Rare Roses, it's a game where you are a floral designer and you're specializing in, well, as the game's title says, rare roses. And you're competing with other people to be the best floral designer in town. You want to, in the game, you have your own kind of area. It's like, I guess, it looks almost like a cart stack, like something you would place outside with flowers or something like that. And there are 3 of those on your mat. And what you're trying to do is collect flowers to bring them in on your mat and try to accomplish some of the objectives that are listed out on the board. And the flowers on the objective cards are either buds or full out bloomed flowers. And at the beginning of a turn, if you have these buds or flowers on your board, they are going to move over a space. So they start in your first cart to the far left as a bud, and then let's say you had that in the first cart. If it moves to the right into that middle area, it now blooms into a flower. It moves to the third, it still stays bloomed, but then if there's nowhere to go after that third, it's died and it's off the board. So that flower is no longer available to fulfill any orders. Kind of very similar if you're in a floral shop, right? If you have flowers that have been there for a while, you usually toss them out because they're no good. So in the game, you want to buy some of these different types of flowers, and their expenses are different depending on the type of flower. Your board has a specialized flower. It tells you which type of flower that you want to look at or your shop specializes in. So you want to try and choose objective cards that have that because there is a bonus for collecting so many of that type of objective card with the flower print that matches yours that's on it. I'm trying to think what else. You want to refill the market. That's an action that you can take by putting more flowers into the market, and you are allowed to do that up to a certain amount of time. And I think the game ends when the pile of objective or order cards are done, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's what it is. And that's it. I think I got the general gist of it. Yeah. Okay. Do you want to go first, Suzanne, or would you like me to go? I feel like I talked a lot there.
I first of all have to call you out because you're a liar.
What? Why?
Because this isn't a one and done. Because I know you played it twice. Mandy.
Oh, there's a reason. Okay, let's be clear. So we received adjustment to the rule, and I think it was in regards to first player and what was received, if I'm not mistaken, or in the game. And I wanted to see how it played out. So this is why I had to give it a second chance, and it still remains in the one and done camp. So it's a little bit of a cheat, but I did have to give it a fair opportunity with the new rule change, which addressed the first player advantage, which we haven't even talked about yet. So
all right, fair enough. I appreciate it. So you and our friend Ashley, who we play a lot of games with, asked me to play, and I agreed to. And ultimately, I think when I walked away from this game, we talked about how, I've played games for 25 years. I've played a lot of hobby games, and I like heavier games, and I like a variety of games, but there are certainly some kind of simpler, more straightforward games that just aren't interesting enough for me as a more experienced game player. And that doesn't mean they're bad or anything like that. They're just not games I'm going to choose to play if I have the opportunity to play something more complex or a little richer or deeper or something like that. And does Rare Roses fit into that category for me, where it is a game that is just not, meaty, which is funny since I'm a vegetarian, but it's not meaty enough for me, but it's not for maybe people less experienced games or who prefer a more streamlined game experience. Maybe it's a better fit for them. And I think that that's a possible scenario. I think the theme is just lovely, but would this be a good game to move them on to or introduce them to? And there were a couple of things with the way the economy worked and a couple of things with the way bonuses worked, because you had you had a special rose type. And if you managed to complete an order that had that icon on the card, you got a massive bonus. But those order cards come out randomly, and you may never even have the opportunity to get that order because it may never even come out, let alone it comes out and somebody snags it from underneath you. And
it's not even just one. You have to get, I think it's 4 of your type, which makes it even more difficult.
There were certain things like that make me go, I don't know. I just, the fact that if you do not have money, you are hosed in this game.
We'll talk about that soon.
If you don't have that knowledge going into it, you can get totally stopped in your ability to progress. I will, though, also say for context, I do not love negotiation games, and there is some negotiation in this, and I know that when the 3 of us played, I just wasn't going to play that way, right? You offered to do some trading with me, and I never saw the real benefit of going along with that for any reason. So maybe people who like negotiation might like it better than I did. But for me, too simple with some swingy rules that felt extreme, a lovely theme, but that wasn't enough to propel it to a future play for me.
And I'm definitely on the same kind of train as Suzanne, with a couple of other things to add that she didn't see in this game, the second game we played. But in the first game, I'm one of those people that likes to take things to the extreme with a game. I act completely reckless. I want to see if this game will work, doesn't matter what I do. And this game did not hold up. I think I just went crazy, spent my monies. Well, I'll just make it up next turn. No, I got stalled. This is a game, if you don't have a certain amount of money, you were stalled. It literally took pity on me and was like, well, I'll buy those flowers for you for X amount of money so I could have money. Because other than that, I was done. We weren't even halfway through the game and I couldn't do anything. So can you imagine you're playing with children? And a child's like, I'm just going to spend all my money and go crazy. I mean, they're kids, right? You're going to have fun with it. It would be horrible because then they couldn't play anymore. You as the parent would have to say, oh, let me throw you, like Monopoly, where you slide, someone some money under the table to keep it going. It's not a rule.
A thing that ruins Monopoly.
Exactly. And I feel like that's what you would have had to do here. Someone has to take pity on you to keep you going. So that was a huge issue. We also noticed the first player advantage, and this is what they tried to correct by allowing you, they allowed you to, it was more flowers that you were able to put out or to get. And whoever was first player had a huge advantage in this game. And it was so obvious. And I think this game kind of made me, and I don't want to say upset, I was frustrated. It seemed like these little things could have been easily prevented had it been tested more. And I think that's what frustrates me, because while it still may not have been the game for me or the game for Suzanne, it could have been the game for someone that was done well. And I feel in this case, I think I'm a little upset at the fact that it didn't have more time spent on game testing, because I feel like these are some things that may have been caught and wouldn't have made it for me not to enjoy it, these sorts of things. And these are big things, not little things. These are big things. Even the cards that you mentioned, Suzanne, with the trying to complete those objectives with the flowers that matched yours, you needed 4 of them. In the game we played, did you even see ones that were your flower? I think in our game, I saw...
In our gameplay, I didn't. My rare rose never came up.
Like, it would never happen. And then whoever got it, let's say for sake of argument you got $50. And money is points in this game. So you couldn't even have an action in this game that allow you to get money, because then you're just giving someone points. So there were a lot of things I feel that needed to be worked out before this game hit production lines. And that, I think, makes me frustrated a little bit, because it could have been prevented. The art, I really liked the art. There were some issues with some of the flowers.
There were some graphic design issues, like telling a bloom from a bud and telling a couple of rose types in the bud form was a little challenging.
Right, or you had a rose that was multicolored, and a lot of us see multicolored in a game, and what do you think of?
Wild.
You think wild. And that was the first thing I thought of, you know what I mean? So just little things like that kind of threw you for a loop a little bit, but the art in itself was very pretty. But from a graphic design point of view, there were a couple kind of misses there that needed to be rectified. So I hope I'm not missing anything. I think I've covered all of it. Rare Roses for me had potential and fell short because I think lack of testing caused that. And I could be 100% wrong, but I think other people who have reviewed this game have had similar thoughts on this, and that's disappointing.
Order up!
And now, it's time to order up a slice of game pie.
Welcome back to another serving of Game Pie, the segment in which we talk about approximately 3-ish games that fit a certain category in a random order. Because why have a top 10 when you can have some pie instead?
Exactly. I like that.
We make it work, folks. Today's game pie is Deduction Pie. Ooh.
Dun, dun, dun.
Again, as we often find ourselves doing, caveats around this, because when we started talking about deduction games between Mandy and myself, we realized we're going to slice off hidden movement games. And maybe that'll be a separate pie in the future. So we kept this to kind of pure deduction or deduction sans hidden movement. And Mandy, for me, as we were figuring out our slices of pie, oh my gosh, I love deduction. I love deduction. So I hate memory,
Oh, yeah, me too.
right? I really dislike the mechanism where other people can see your cards or tiles and you can't. Mm-hmm. Don't like Love deduction. Love it, love it, love it, love it. And this was, just like when we were talking about trick taking, I had a hard time winnowing down.
Yes, I agree. Me too. And it's funny how deduction, yes. If you put social in front of deduction, no.
I feel very, very similar to you on this one.
Very strange. Very strange.
So yeah, I don't think we have any social deduction games.
I don't think we do at all.
In this one, which I don't think was intentional. It's just neither of us really care for social deduction games in general.
Right. Exactly. Pure old deduction.
So Mandy, what's your first slice of deduction pie?
All right. Well, this one, first slice for me, it's a nice big piece of pie. It's Detective City of Angels. And I'm not even joking. The box is huge. But it's because it has so much gaming goodness in it. And it's one of those games where, you know, you're detectives and you're trying to solve a case. And you're playing with other players in the game, and there are a variety of actions you can take to discover, clues, to discover people that you might need to talk to, investigating those people, and you have X amount of turns to try and to solve the case, and obviously you want to do it before other people do. So it comes with miniatures in the game, which, I mean, is it necessary? No, but I like it. It provides a nice kind of atmosphere of the game because you have a big board with the little miniatures, and then you have a board for yourself to keep track of all your actions. I like to write things down. They do give you a little piece of paper, but I made my own little sheet so I can actually write stuff out because I find that it lets me follow the game better. But long story short, Detective City of Angels is great. I think I even bought the added bits to it because it was on Kickstarter. Yeah. I said it, and I don't even buy, I was going to say extensions, and I decided to get it for this. So Detective City of Angels is one I'd like to play more, kind of difficult in our current situation, but excellent game.
It is a huge box, that is for sure. First up for me, a classic deduction game in the purest sense of the word. I've talked about in the podcast before. Mm-hmm. Sleuth. Sleuth is, if you like deduction and you have not played Sleuth, you are shortchanging yourself. Sleuth is a very straightforward deduction game in which you have a deck of cards and there's different gems. Like everything's represented by colors and pearls and diamonds and rubies and all that kind of stuff. And every player gets a sheet, and ultimately it's got a little bit of a Go Fish feel almost to it, where you're asking about colors or gem types, and you're listening to everybody interact, and you're marking notes on your sheet, and you're trying, you know what you have in your hand, and you're exchanging information. And I love Sleuth with a hot burning fire. It's so good. If you like just a straightforward, pure deduction game, Sleuth has got to be on your list. It's excellent.
I see. So a sprinkle of cayenne on this.
Absolutely. I would, yes. It's chocolate cream pie with a sprinkle of cayenne.
I love it. And this is a game I have not played, so now I feel like I really have to add this on my list. So thank you for that.
I have not played Detective City of Angels, and you talk about it so much, I'm actually very, very eager to try it.
You know, eventually, we're going to have to do it together one day. Next one on my list, and I know Suzanne also enjoys this one, is Decrypto. So let's start off with, I am not going to explain how this game is played. And the reason why I say that, it's a tough one to explain. You have to kind of play it through. But once you get through that, it's so good. And it's one of those ones where you're teaming up with somebody against another team, so to speak, and you have a little board that has clues in it, right? And you're trying to, I don't know, maybe you can explain this one better, Suzanne, like just a little blurb of it. I have a hard time explaining this one.
You have these red film panels, and there's different clues, and you're trying to basically come up with the code that your opponent has, and you're tracking through different rounds the information that's shared. It's quite challenging to teach, but once you get into it and carrying over knowledge between rounds and things like that, it's a ton of fun, and I think it's an excellent pick. And quite frankly, I may have shoved it up if I didn't know you were putting it on the list.
Sorry. Yeah, I wanted to make it clear to understand, but yeah, it's one of those ones, don't shy away from it because the rules are like, oh, but once you kind of go through it once or twice, you have it, and you'll just want to keep playing. And here's another one that I have an expansion, which makes it even harder to play. Like, not the rules, but just harder in general for the game, and I'm excited to play it. So Decrypto's one that's been out for a little while, but very, very fun. I even taught colleagues, so, it's definitely something I could play with people at work. Just got to get through that explanation, but Decrypto's excellent.
Another I love deduction so much, Mandy. I love this every time I look at this list of games. I get all excited.
You should see Suzanne right now. She's just like shaking with glee right now. This is so good.
Cryptid.
Ooh, good one.
So darn good.
Agreed.
Where you have a big map that comes up with all these tiles, and you've got your player color, and you've got discs, and you've got cubes, and you're laying out information, and you're making guesses. You have a little bit of information about, well, the cryptid is in a forest region, or it's within 5 squares of a tent, or blah. Like, there's all these really different clues based on the hexagon types or the location of some of these special characters, like within 2 hexagons of a bear or what have you, right? And players are all just taking turns putting their guesses out, and the mechanisms have you stacking, right? So if a guess is made, you stack whether it fits or it doesn't fit, and there's this amazing tension as you get to the top and somebody puts the cube on top and you're like, oh, it's interactive in a really great way, which, quite frankly, a lot of deduction games, now that I think of it, are interactive, which is lovely. But Cryptid takes a formula, puts a nice twist on it, and I think it does a really interesting job of giving you an app option or a physical option to drive the deduction and drive the clues, which is a nice thing as well. If you like, again, it's more of a pure deduction game. If you like that kind of thing, Cryptid should be on your list.
Yeah, absolutely. It's again, that would be on my list, but it was on Suzanne's, so there was no need for me to add it, but excellent choice. So I have another detective game on here, but it is literally just detective. So this is the Portal Games version that I'm talking about, and it is long. So let's start off by that. When you play a game of detective, you're looking at like a 3-hour plus gameplay. But for me, it just reminds me of those crime shows on TV. And for some reason, I think I watch way too many of these shows because as soon as I get in, I already have like narrowed things down. Yes, it's this. And I play with people who are much the same. And we're just like, we immerse ourselves in this game so much. So if you can get by the length of time it takes to play the game, there's some app integration, but it's slight. It's just, using your old mind to figure it out, just putting it in for information, typing in stuff into the app for information, and it lets you know how you've done at the end. Detective for me is great. I think we've only gone in through 3 scenarios. I have a couple more to play through. Again, it's just time to do it. But Detective is fantastic. I implore you to give that a go.
We made an error between games where we didn't keep our notes.
No.
It was so awful. And we tried to go on to the next case without our notes. And that was not
brutal.
Not going to happen. But the mechanisms were just so awesome. And it's when you really immerse yourself in. And Mandy, knowing you, this is
into it.
So your jam. I really want to try the Rob Davio little expansion that came out for it.
Me too.
That one looks cool.
So good.
For me, up next, this is deduction. Yeah, this is deduction.
Yeah, it is.
Mysterium or Dominici Demesto, which was the original publication overseas, and then it was rebranded to Mysterium. And I will always tout that I actually prefer the Polish version over the more mass market Asmodee version.
Right. From
an art point of view and just from a rules point of view. There were some things that Mysterium added that I did enjoy, but overall, I preferred Dominici Demesto because it just was more streamlined. It was just simpler.
Right.
Mysterium adds all this timeline and voting and blah, 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 blah. Now, what Mysterium did add that I really liked was a shield, a player shield for the ghosts so that you could put your cards in and things like that.
Yeah, that's nice.
But Mysterium is a cooperative game. Mysterium is one that just works for me, just like we talked about with Masterword, where one player plays a ghost and you're giving clues to the, I guess, psychics that are in the house.
Yeah.
And you've got this grid of, it's like Clue, right? What room was the murder in? What weapon was used and who did it? And so you're cluing each one of these things and you're trying to progress the psychics through it so that they can ultimately get to the right combination. I love this game. I've loved it for years. It's just creative and fun. It's fun to be a psychic. It's fun to be a ghost. There's tension in it. It's just fascinating to see how different people's think about what they're seeing. You can be the ghost and you're cluing in something so obvious. Oh, it's clearly, I'm giving you all the blue clues. Clearly, everything that I'm showing you is blue. Pick the card that has the most blue. Come on, people, it's blue. And then they're talking about, well, this one has a knife, and this one has a scissors, and this one has a spear, so it must be something pointy. Well, the chef has a pointy hat, so it must be them. And you're just, as the ghost, you're just sitting there going,
Right, exactly.
and I love that. I think that's fun. Mysterium, and it plays a high player count. Mysterium is just a really fun cooperative deduction game.
So Mysterium has a different feel for me. I like this game, and I have like a high, like a bit of an
Yeah, that didn't sound
voice.
super confident, Mandy.
But I like it with changes. I like it with house rules. If I just played it straight as it is, I didn't love it. Now I'm talking about the Asmodee version. I had never played the original version.
Right.
I feel like certain things we added, like we would add talking about a story, you know, if you have a card and like telling a story about why you chose that card when we start talking about it. So we added kind of more of that interactive element. That track thing, we don't even bother using it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, so things like that. So I like it if I can house rule it. If I had to play it straight from where it is, I don't think I would love it as
Fair
much.
enough.
So, yeah. Okay, the last slice of pie I have is actually a recent game. I'm pretty sure it's out, and I was surprised. I'll be honest, I was surprised that I like it. So yes, there is a space theme. I know. But it just so happened to have a space theme, okay?
Mm-hmm. That's what you say about all of the space games you love, Mandy.
I will never live this down.
Never.
So it's the Search for Planet X, and this is a recent installment from Renegade Games Studio. And this one is great. Actually, you can play this one virtually, which works out really well. And in the game, you're trying to find Planet X, but you have to find out where certain planets are on neighboring planets, so you can kind of cross those off. So you know, okay, it's not here, and there's certain rules where the Planet X will be. Like it may not be in the same area as this type of planet. So it's just whittling down your choices, and you don't want to take too long to do it, otherwise you're providing an opportunity for someone else to guess, right? But I like the fact there are also other ways to get points, like when you maybe have a guaranteed guess where a certain type of planet or comet is, for example, and you have these kind of things that you can put out to say, yeah, I know for sure there's a comet there, or whatever it may be, and then when it comes time to kind of score that, those are some extra points that you can get. So I do like that balance. So Search for Planet X was really good for me, and I look forward to playing it again soon. I've played it like 3 or 4 times now, so exciting stuff.
I loved this game, and Ashley, who is also a fan of Sleuth, and I had that discussion where a lot of times games that add stuff around the deduction, they miss. They miss for me, because I just love deduction so much. If you add too much around it, it distracts from the thing that I most love. But Search for Planet X, they nailed it. They added just enough.
Exactly.
And I very much enjoy it with you. All right. And the last slice I want to serve up, I could not have this list without it. And quite frankly, this game would go on a lot of different game pies for me.
For sure.
This is Chronicles of Crime.
So good.
Cooperative game.
Okay, wait, before you keep talking there. See, you know how you get on me about space games? I'm sorry, can you repeat that again? What type of game is that,
Okay,
Suzanne?
all right. Cooperative game that I like. Thank you, Mandy. And it's really well known because it's app driven. It has a very tight integration. You can't play it without an app, where clues and locations and characters have QR codes that you scan with your phone. And it has kind of a VR thing going on where you can put these little clip-on glasses and put your phone up, and you get to look at the crime scene and see things. And it's so fun to just stand there and feel like you're in the environment and discover things that way and communicate with your team. I think all the pieces come together really, really well in Chronicles of Crime in general, from the technology to the gameplay, and it's just fun. It's just fun, and there is a narrative, right? You're solving a mystery, and you're going through, and a lot of times it's a murder, right? So you're solving the mystery, you're talking to people, and you go back and forth, and you talk to somebody at the bar, and then you go back to the bar to talk to them. Yeah, well, guess what? You're too late. They've moved. You got to go find them. There's all these little things in the game that work so well. And what I also really appreciate about Chronicles of Crime is that it's, I guess, modular in a way. So you buy the base game and you get different mysteries using the same components. So the card that may be the victim in one crime may be a suspect in another crime, and they just leverage the components again. And I think that's a very clever way of doing it. Moreover, there's expansions.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't just take, okay, here's the formula, here's another mystery to solve. No. They give you new cards. They give you twists to the mechanisms. Now, all of a sudden, maybe you need to have a camera or you need to have a weapon on you. Well, if you don't, then something different happens. Well, that wasn't in the base game. Oh, well, wasn't that fancy?
Exactly.
So Chronicles of Crime as a system is a phenomenal representation of modern gaming to me. It integrates technology in a beautiful way. It engages players. It tells a story. And at its core, that little heart of deduction beats very strongly. So Chronicles of Crime, my last slice of game pie.
Oh, and something else to note, because I think it was part of the Dice Tower Kickstarter, you may recognize a few faces, potentially if you get your hands on these cards, for Chronicles of Crime.
Oh, that's right. Oh my gosh, you're right. I had forgotten.
I know, right? So I hope I have a very interesting role, meaning like I hope I'm scary and I do some crazy, scary things. I don't know if that'll happen, but it'll be fun.
Oh, Mandy. You're the dark heart of Mandy.
Exactly.
Well, there you go, folks. Our deduction game pie. I think that this segment has really hit with you all out there. Why? Because you talk to us about it. We get emails. I get so many emails from you all about Game Pie and games that you agree with or games that you don't agree with, games that you didn't know about that you went out and tried and ended up enjoying. And, well, that's very rewarding. And
Yes.
It's so awesome to hear from you. So, hey, deduction games, which ones did we miss? Let us know. Because, hey, if there's a deduction game that's awesome that I haven't played, I want to know about it.
Oh, me too, for sure.
You can let us know what you think about deduction games. If you think we picked the wrong games, heck, go ahead and let us know that too.
Sure.
In a nice way. You can reach me at Suzanne@dicetower.com.
And you can reach me at Mandy, that's Mandy with an I, at dicetower.com.
As always, it is a pleasure and privilege to be here talking about board and card games with you. Thank you so much for making us part of your extended gaming family. It is an honor. Next episode, 677. Tom and Eric. Mandy, I'm super excited about this one.
Me too.
Tom and Eric are talking about games that break the vassal law of gaming.
Dum, dum, dum.
Exactly. So you gotta listen to that one. You gotta find out where Tom is wrong. But until next time, I'm Suzanne Sheldon.
And I'm Andy Hutchinson.
And you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This podcast is sponsored by listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassal Memorial Fund is an organization dedicated to helping gamers in need. Learn more about the fund's mission and how you can help at jackvassal.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom, Suzanne, Mandy, and Eric with assistance from Roy Canaday and Rob Searing. Our theme is composed by Timothy Pinkham and arranged by Matt Bellier. Let us know what you think of the show by posting to the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, following the Dice Tower on Twitter, or by emailing us at podcast@dicetower.com. And don't forget to visit the other shows in the Dice Tower Network at dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. All right, everyone, it's that time again for Two Truths and a Lie. So I'm going to go first and talk about the ones I said last episode. Here we go. I hope to eventually run a marathon. I've never broken a bone. And I ghost wrote a book with one of my professors. I know, as much as it sounds like I would be doing something like this, the lie is that I ghost wrote a book with one of my professors. I wish. That would have been awesome.
Honestly, I'm shocked that you've never broken a bone.
No, I know I've injured severely a lot of things, but never broken a bone.
Oh, good. Last episode, I said I've been published in a scrapbooking magazine, I've been published in a baking magazine, and I've been published in a board game magazine. And the lie is that I've been published in a baking magazine.
Really? That is a bit of a surprise, actually.
That's what Two Truths and a Lie is all about.
That's fair. That was a tricky one. I like it. Tricky wiki. All right. So new this episode, I think I've got a tricky one for you. Here we go. I own all of Star Realms, so all the bits for Star Realms. I own all of Hero Realms, and I own all of Dale of Merchants. Ha ha ha. Try that one on for size.
Oh, I don't know, because you love all of it.
I know.
All right, and for me this episode, I own all of the Small World expansions. I own all of the Tiny Epic series. And I own all of the 6 Nimmt games.
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm excited to hear the answers for those. So, good luck, everybody.